Okay,
Yes, I'm
so we
connected
are
again.
on Discover Yourself, topic 3, Infallible Vedic Wisdom. And I intend to finish it very quickly in next half an hour today. And I want to start topic 4, that is Science of Soul. So let us see how we go about it. So we discussed search for happiness is mainly for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And on that platform, we are equal to animals. And we discussed a verse from Mahabharata, which gives that knowledge to us, right? And this is a profound thing we had discussed, that we should find our cause of sufferings and purpose of life, and we should look for eternal happiness. We are all hankering for happiness, and no matter what do we achieve in our life, we are not happy. We may assume that, okay, if I get maybe 10 crores, I will be happy. I don't know about others, but I will be happy. But people who have 10 crores, people who have 100 crores, they are not happy, right? From the clear observation in the world, we can see that. So our choice now decides our future. If we live a responsible human life, if we follow the dharma of human life, then we are promoted to higher life. And if we forget our dharma of human life, then we are demoted to lower life forms like animals. And from this, then we had discussed the cause of sufferings in this world, right? The 4 fundamental problems: birth, old age, disease, and death, right?
Right.
All these slides we have seen, and this is the Bhagavad Gita verse 13.9. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukha Doshanudarsham. That's the message of Krishna to Arjuna and to all of us. Okay, and apart from these 4 fundamental problems, we have seen 3 miseries: Adhyatmika Klesh, Adibhautik Klesh, and Adidevik Klesh. The miseries we get into because of my own body and my mind, then other living entity, and by nature, right? These 4 fundamental problems and 3 miseries, they always are behind us, and they are the cause of suffering. Now, um, we have seen all these slides, right? Science has not been able to solve these problems for us, right? Science has been able to give some comfort at that point in time, but then if we look a larger picture, even that solution given by science creates more problems. On that note, we had seen this kind of things. Automobile, maybe it solves one problem, but it creates another problem, right? Traffic, pollution, accidents. And surprising thing is that when science talks about increasing mortality rate, hmm, uh, the charts will always show that, okay, the life expectancy was maybe 50 years or 40 years before 100 years, but now we have increased the life expectancy with the help of medicine and advancement and so many technological inventions. The problem is with that chart that these figures are not counted. When 2 trains collide and 100 people die, that is not counted in that. But if you say, if you see the if you want to calculate the numbers honestly, then you should count these numbers also, because if the trains would have not been there, then the collision would not have, caused 100 people to die. Similarly, a building falls, earthquake comes. In earlier times, earthquake used to come. People used to live in simple homes, huts. The casualties were very less, right? But now when we are in the buildings, something falls, then the casualties are more. So now the corona pandemic, right? So many people have died, but will these numbers make to those charts which claim the mortality rates increase? uh, um, so these numbers also have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Okay, another point is that, yeah, in the name of advancement, we are only increasing maybe employment, we are increasing people's status of life, but then again, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, people have forgotten their purpose, their goal of life, and they are struggling hard to make their 2 ends meet. Okay, these are the problems with scientific advancement. Mountain of 6 billion types. This is in Chennai, and there is no way to get rid of this pollution. Okay, So now our situation is like this fish out of water. We have everything but water, and hence we are struggling for life. Okay, and we had discussed this verse from Mahabharata, Ahani Ani Bhutani, which is mentioned by Yudhishthira Maharaj to Yaksha. Yaksha asked Yudhishthira Maharaj, what is the top wonderful thing in this world? And Yudhishthira Maharaj says that people are dying every day, every hour, every moment. But the people like us who are living, it never occurs to us that we will also die one day. So what are we doing for that? We say that, yeah, why should I worry about scriptures? Why should I worry about spiritual life? Why should I worry about God right now? There is entire world, um, to to enjoy for me, and my life is hunky dory. I'm earning a lot. I'm spending a lot. I have so many relatives. I have so much strength. So I will live a happy life. But we don't realize that any time my call can come and I have to leave this world, right? As it's an English proverb which says going to bed is in our hand, but coming out of bed is not in our hand, right? We may put an alarm, we may put anything, but will we see the next sun on? We are not sure, right? So if we are not sure about tomorrow, then why not live the present day in such a way which improves my life, not only tomorrow, but in my next life also, right? Okay, so we are suffering the threefold miseries and real problems due to acting sinfully against God's laws, just like a mischievous child who leaves the safe custody of the parents. When children are away from parents, troubles come on them, right? And they don't know how to deal with them. When they are with the parents, then they have that shelter. Similarly, we have left the God's shelter. We want to live life in our own way. We want to enjoy every um, every brand, every invention, uh, everyone in this life, they are suggesting us to enjoy unlimitedly, right? What does the Nike say? Nike, this apparel and shoes company, Nike, they say, just do it. Don't think. Don't think before you do something, but just do it, right? They don't worry about the results. Reliance says, kar lo duniya mutti mein. Little life we have. And in that life, we waste uh, time by attempting like kar lo duniya mutti mein. What happens even if we win this world? Napoleon had won this world. Hitler had won this world. So many kings had come in the past. Where are they right now? Death comes and it doesn't ask that are you a king? Are you a scientist? Are you a doctor? Or what have you achieved in life? It comes without knocking. And that is what we have to remember and live life in such a way. Okay. So the next question comes, where do I go after death? The cause of my suffering is the 4 fundamental problems and 3 miseries, right? And what is the solution? It will come next in the coming topics. So there's a suffering, and where do I go after that is the most fundamental question which a human being should ask. These 2 questions to start with makes us different, or makes us superior to animals. Don't forget that connection, right? We started this topic with that question: what is the difference between animals and humans? These 2 questions: what is the cause of my suffering? Birth, old age, disease, death, and 3 miseries. And then where do I go after death? These are the 2 fundamental questions. Now Lord Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, right, you are not the immaterial body, you are imperishable soul. And this is the message given to Arjuna by Krishna in 2nd chapter itself. Now 1st chapter is full with the description of the scene of the Kurukshetra war and Arjuna's dilemma. And in 2nd chapter, Arjuna keeps asking a lot of questions to Krishna. And then Krishna, when he starts speaking, he starts with this message. Arjuna, you're not the material body, you are the soul. And let me go to the Mohan, if you don't mind, I'll put you on mute.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks. So, what is the meaning of you are not the body, you are soul? If we want to understand practically, then we can understand this body like a shirt. The way we change our clothes every day, the shirt may get torn or every day just like that because it is not fresh enough now. So we leave that shirt and we put on another shirt. Similarly, when the body is not useful for the soul, it has become old. It is not functioning properly. The soul leaves this current body and takes another body. That is, this mechanism is called death. Now there is more to it. I will explain in the next topic also. Right now, we'll go ahead. This is the verse Krishna speaks again to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Now this is chapter 8, verse number 15. I will recite this verse and I want you to recite after me. If you want, you can unmute yourself, but I'll explain you the meaning after we recite. Okay, listen carefully. Mam upetya punarjanma. Please repeat. Mam upetya punarjanma.
Mam upetya punarjanma.
Dukkhalayam ashashvatam.
Dukkhalayam ashashvatam.
Napnuvanti mahatmanaha.
Napnuvanti mahatmanava.
Samsiddhim paramam gata.
Samsiddhi paramham gata.
Okay, thank you everyone. I'm sorry about the font. I had put this verse here and it looks like it requires some other kind of font to be installed. So I'll correct it later.
Very nice. Don't worry.
Yeah, so what is the meaning of verse? The Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Let me go to the next slide. Explain the meaning. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. So Krishna is calling this world two adjectives: Dukkhalayam, Ashashvatam. Now, what is the meaning of Ashashvatam? Shashvat means one who, which or who lives forever, which doesn't perish. So Shashvatam means permanent. So Ashashvatam means opposite, non-permanent, that is temporary. So Krishna is telling this world is temporary. Okay. Another adjective is Dukkhalayam. So what is the meaning of Dukkhalayam? What is the meaning of Ashadhalay? A place where you get Ashadhi, medicines, right? The house of medicines. What is the meaning of Vidyalay? The house of knowledge, jahan pe vidya milti hai. What is the meaning of Himalaya? The place where you find him, right? Barf. Him is ice in Sanskrit. Himalaya. Similarly, Dukkhalaya, the place where you get dukh, miseries, sorrow, right? So this word has been stamped by Krishna as Dukkhalaya. It's the house of sorrow. So what do you get in the house of sorrow? You get sorrow, right? So when we are looking for happiness in this world, will we get it? No, because it's the house of sorrow. Simple, right? Another thing is to understand is it is temporary word. So when Krishna is saying this temporary word, that means that our life here is temporary, our relationships here are temporary, our objects here are temporary. Whatever we achieve in this world here is temporary. Nothing is permanent. And if this world is temporary, then there's what is a permanent? Soul is permanent. Okay. And the connection of soul with God is permanent. And the residence where God lives is permanent. The place where soul originally belongs is permanent. That place is something else. That place is somewhere else. Okay? So that understanding will develop in the coming topics, but this is just a summary, okay, just to explain this verse, that this world is not a fit place for us to live. This is to be understood here. And Krishna is saying the great souls who are the yogis in devotion, they never return to temporary world. They never return to this Dukhalaya world. They go somewhere else. Okay. And that somewhere else is called nirvana. That is called moksha, salvation. There are many names of it in different religions, right? But the concept is same. Every religion on this earth is talking about the same thing, that this world is not a fit place for us. This world does not belong to us. We belong to somewhere else. Okay, and that's where we have to go. And that is called breaking the cycle of birth and death. Okay, birth happens to the body, death happens to the body, disease happens to the body, old age happens to the body. All the miseries, they come to the body. Soul is different, soul is separate, and the soul is covered by this body currently. We are not the body, we are soul. Okay, and when the soul leaves this body here and qualifies itself to not come to this world again, that is called moksha. Okay, I'll go ahead with this understanding. And okay, I'll just skip this slide for now. So what we are doing in this world is, we are, okay, what is this? Can somebody observe what is happening in this picture? Just look at this lady and the cage. What is happening here?
Keeping the
The
parrot,
lady is, yeah.
keeping the parrot in golden cage.
Okay, Sharad.
I'm taking care of the cage only, not the parrot.
Very nice observation. See, the parrot has died actually in the cage. The lady is taking care of the golden cage. The golden cage has to be polished, it has to be kept clean, right? It's an expensive thing. And the cage was meant for parrot to live, but the parrot has died because the no food was supplied to the parrot. Similarly, we are taking care of the body only. But what is the real thing which is living? The real thing is soul, not the body. And we are polishing the body. We are applying a lot of perfumes and makeups and whatnot. And we are bathing the body. We are cleaning the body. We are feeding the body. Everything for the body. We are giving rest to the body, nothing for the soul. And the soul is hungry. Soul is hankering for happiness. That is why our search for happiness doesn't end ever, because soul is not getting satisfied. How will the soul satisfy? We'll see next, later. Before that, so this topic is getting over with this. This is the final piece here. Okay, we have discussed so many things from the Vedas till now, the difference between animals and humans, the problems in this world, and the what is birth, what is death, about a little bit about soul. All this knowledge is coming from the Vedas, right? And this knowledge is very, very deep. Okay, unfortunately, nobody has given us this knowledge so far. In the Gurukulas, in the earlier education system in the ancient India, this knowledge was given from first standard till the last standard. This knowledge was given, and students used to realize this knowledge, and that was the reason that nobody used to go on wrong paths. Nobody used to get into wrong habits. No, people were mostly the society problems were not there. The people were largely happy. Vedic life was simple living and high thinking, right? You don't live an extravagant life, that is okay, but you don't compromise with the principles of life, because these problems, people used to see these problems are the fundamental problems. People did not fight with for the petty issues, right? This person has taken my land, that person has taken my body. Nobody used to do this. And even if somebody has done, people used to move on and focus on purpose of life. If everything is temporary, then what do I fight for? And that's the reason India has never attacked any country in this world. Indians have never encroached upon any land. They have not created any problems in this world. Other people used to come and they used to loot. And because this life was lived on such principles, India was still so rich, right? Because everything was God-centered. Nobody used to, the people were charitable. The principle was give first and then take later. A grihastha, a person who's living with the family, he was supposed to go when the food is cooked in the home, right? The grihastha is supposed to go out of the home and then shout, if somebody is hungry, please come here, we have food, please honor the food. Wherever his voice goes, if somebody is hungry, they can come, open invitation. They used to be fed, and only after that the people living in the home used to accept meal. This was Vedic life. Such high standards. I'll give you one example. Earlier, people used to eat in the home, and they used to go out to pass urine and stool. Right? People used to go to some empty fields, jungles, like that. Right? Eat in the home, cook nice, eat nice, and then in the mornings clear your stomach outside. Now what is happening is completely ulta, right? We eat outside in the restaurants, whatever kind of food we eat, is filthy kind of people who are cooking the food, and filthy food stuff they are putting in the food. That food we eat, and we pass stool and urine in our home, in our attached bathrooms. These the bathrooms used to be out of the home. Just recollect from wherever we have come from in our native places, right? Still, these bathrooms are outside the home. Now they have taken place. With every room there is a bathroom and a toilet, and there is no place of worship in the home, entire home. The place of worship was prominent in the home. Every village there was a temple in the middle. Every home there was a small altar or the temple in the middle. The life used to revolve around God and the principles. Right now, everything has been forgotten, and we are cosmopolitans. Every room will have a toilet. We will eat out and pass stool inside, but then we don't have time for God. You will be surprised to know in Pune, close to Hinjawadi, there is some project is coming up. This real estate, this building, right? The flats. And in those flats, kitchen is not there. What is the understanding? The builder is saying that the husband and wife both are working in IT. They are working in Hinjawadi IT companies. They eat their lunch in offices, and in the night they order from outside, or they eat outside and come home. They don't have time for kitchen. They just say that this kitchen is not required. You make our bedrooms big. You create a big place for our sofa and the TV. That is important, but kitchen is not important. Such low consciousness is there nowadays with youth. Where is the world going? So these fundamental things are taught by scriptures, which make our life purposeful. Now somebody will say that, okay, I don't want to go into such high philosophy and such deep knowledge. I don't worry about it. Okay, tell me something practical. Tell me how it improves my life in a quick way currently and all. Okay, so this is for them. Okay, this is to increase our faith anyway on the scriptures, and also to reply to people who say that Vedas are not relevant today. Okay, now see, so many predictions have been given in the Vedas which are true. For example, these personalities which are there on the slide, their birth have been predicted perfectly by the Vedas. Gautam Buddha, Chanakya, the great king Ashoka, Jesus, Muhammad Pegambar, all these. So the numbers are written here. SB is Srimad Bhagavatam, the scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, 1-3-24 number verse. Similarly, Chanakya, Ashoka, all these verses are given here. If you want, you can go and check. You can take a screenshot of this slide. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is predicted here in Mahabharata. This is the picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came in the region of Bengal, Navadvip to be precise, around 550 years ago. Okay, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he had started a movement called the Bhakti movement. Lot of history about him. So he was predicted in Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, Christ, Muhammad, Bhavishya Puran, Atharva Veda, all these scriptures have given a lot of predictions which have been true. Apart from this, scientific information in the Vedas. Vedas have already stated that Vedas, the plants have life. The science did not agree, and later Jagdish Chandra Bose proved it. Okay. Now, you see the description of human embryology in scriptures matches modern day medical research. The sonography, the techniques of sonography has developed in only last 50 years. Okay. And then scientists, the doctors have found out that this is how the baby develops in the womb of the mother in these stages. Okay. This happens like that in 9 months, this human baby. It takes around 9 months time, and this is how the development happens in the womb of the embryo, right? Now, Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, there are 7 verses. Those 7 verses exactly describe how the embryo develops in the mother's womb. In the first week, the egg and the sperm meet, and the zygote happens, and this converts into an alum, and then it grows. And then in which week the nails will come, in which week the hair will come, in which week eyes will develop, which week skin will come, like that. Everything is described there only in 7 verses, and scientists have tried to match that description, and it matches flawlessly with scientific discoveries. Right now, this Vedas have come, they are coming since centuries, since thousands and lakhs of years, right? And that information is given. Now Vedas state cow dung is pure. Only after the Britishers came into India, they created this problem. That they sowed this seed in Indian people mind that, oh, this is dirty, this is filthy. You people, you worship cow, you worship animals, you drink urine of animal, you use stool of the animal. This is so dirty, this is so filthy. Like that, they started preaching, and we started believing them, because Indians had started believing that whatever Britishers say, they are superiors, and we agree to them. Now in 1940, the scientists found its antiseptic qualities. The research is still going on cow dung and the cow urine. There are so many medicinal qualities which this has. So many medicines are being made with cow urine and cow dung. And Vedas have said that every other kind of stool and urine is dirty. Okay, if we have accidentally we have come in touch with any animal's stool or urine, we have to take bath. Okay, it is that filthy. The same Vedas say that cow dung is pure and cow urine is pure. Okay, this is called axioms. These are called scientific Vedic axioms. For example, we have axioms in science, right? Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It's an axiom. The third law of thermodynamics. It's an axiom. We just have to believe it. Similarly, some things are Veda, something in Veda is also axiom. We just believe it. Okay. Modern man is turning to yoga now. Meditation, Vastu Shastra, astronomy, astrology, metallurgy, everything is given in the Vedas. That's why I mentioned earlier sometime, the Vedas are called Kalpa Vriksha, desire tree. Whatever we want, Vedas have a solution for that. Chemical reactions, the zinc was only made in India so many centuries ago, before these Mughals and Turks had attacked. This is Ashok Stamp is there in Sarnath. This is an alloy of several metals combined. It has not rusted till date. So old column it is made with an alloy. Scientists do not know till now how to what kind of quantity of which metal exactly it's there. There is a temple in Chennai, if I'm not wrong, somewhere in the south. This is this temple. I'm forgetting the name of the temple. This temple has so many pillars, okay, to take the support of course. Pillars are required in the building. Surprisingly, none of the pillars is touching the ground. The pillars are there. The pillars are giving support to the building, but the pillars are not touching the ground. Now,
Jai Prabhuji, sorry to interrupt. That
Yes,
is,
Vishal.
the temple is near Bangalore. It is called as Lepakshi.
Okay, thanks, Vishal. Lepakshi temple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So similarly, there are so many infrastructural magics which are there in entire India. But when they talk about seven wonders of the world, they will count these useless monuments and the Taj Mahal. The Shilpa Shastra describes so many wonderful ways of creating the buildings, and this I'm only giving one example. We are short of time, but there are so many other examples also of this the same thing in India. So another example, Pythagoras theorem, we have all have studied in our books, right? Pythagoras theorem, exactly in one verse, it is given in the Rig Veda. Okay, if you see all the scientific discoveries, all this inventions and technological advancement science has made, it has only happened in last 100 or 150 years, 200 years, max 200 years. Is it a coincidence that only after Britishers came to India, they read all these scriptures, they had Indologists coming to India, they made them learn Sanskrit, read those books, translate it into different English language, and tell to Indians that your scriptures are just bogus, and take the knowledge out of the India and then put their own stamp on it. That okay, I have discovered Pythagoras theorem, I have given theory of evolution. Now, theory of evolution, Darwin, right? Conspiracy theory is that in the Vedas talk about the life forms, right? One life form converts into other. One person dies and then he takes another life. There are 8.4 million species, 84 lakh life forms, and a soul takes one body after another body until it gets out of this world. Now, these English people, they do not believe in the soul. They cannot understand anything about soul. So they are thinking that okay, evolution is happening like this. After so many millions of years, one life form is changing into another life form, right? So if you see like that, so all these inventions have come only after Britishers invaded India and they learned our scriptures. Of course, there's no way to prove it, so it's still a conspiracy theory, but logic says that. Anyway, even if they would have discovered it independently, the point is so many things are given in the Vedas, which science is discovering now. Okay, let's go ahead. See, this is the Vedic number system. 100 is 1 Shatam, and then 10 power 60. We have name for a number which is 10 power 60. This is like uncountable in English language. Our lunar year was 354 years, and we used to add one extra month to it. It was based on moon. Now, English calendar is based on solar, sun, and it is 365. It's exactly the same. Okay. Now, Europeans used to believe till 1600, 17th century, they used to believe Earth is flat. How the criminals were given death sentences? They used to be, the people, the government, the kings, they made the criminals sit on the boat and they sent the boat into the sea. The understanding is that after some time, the boat goes ahead and they will fall because Earth is flat and they will fall and they will die. But us Indians, what do we call geography in Hindi or Sanskrit? We call Bhugol. Bhugol. Bhugol itself means the Bhumi, Earth is round. We did not have any problem anywhere, but the others were fighting over. The battles were fought just to prove this concept. Earth is flat, Earth is round. Okay, so we talked about axioms. So similarly, Vedas also have axioms which we can just take and believe. Okay. So this is the um, 4 universities in which Vedic knowledge has to be received. Okay, this is very, very important. I had given a brief about this in one of the earlier sessions. When Vedas have been given, they have been explained by God to these 4 personalities. Okay, on the top you have Lakshmi, Brahma, Shiva, and Chatush Kumar, these 4 sons of Lord Brahma. Okay, when God gave knowledge to be propagated in this world, first of all, he gave knowledge to these 4 personalities. From Lakshmi comes Shri Sampradaya. Okay, the university is called Sampradaya in Sanskrit. So from Lakshmi comes Shri Sampradaya, then Brahma Sampradaya from Brahma, then Rudra Sampradaya from Shiva, and from Kumaras, it comes Kumar Sampradaya. Under them is the last prominent acharyas in these sampradayas. You would have, especially the South Indian people, they would have heard about Ramanujacharya a lot. Any South Indian temple you go, you will always find Ramanujacharya deity in front of Lord's deity. For example, Tirupati, Balaji temple, right? Tirupati, Balaji's deity is there. In front of it, Ramanujacharya's deity is there. Sri Rangam, Rangnath Swami, the Padmanabh temple, lot of all these temples, they have already Ramanujacharya because he was the last prominent acharya. He's a guru, and with the guru's permission, Lord is approached. God is approached. So Shri Sampradaya. So all these South Indian temple, they come under Shri Sampradaya system. Okay. Then there is Brahma Sampradaya. Brahma Sampradaya, my last prominent acharya was Madhvacharya. Ramanujacharya came around 1000 years ago. Madhvacharya came around 700 years ago. Okay, he was born in Karnataka, Udupi, the region of Udupi, and there is very old matha. It was established by Madhvacharya. It is called the Udupi Krishna Math. Okay, and the deity also, there's Lord Krishna's deity, which is installed by Madhvacharya there, same time. Very old temple. So this is Brahma Sampradaya, and the Rudra Sampradaya is mostly lost these days. Vishnu Swami was the last prominent known acharya. This Sampradaya is still going on. So by the way, Ramanujacharya gave this knowledge to further his disciples. Madhvacharya gave to his disciples, Vishnu Swami gave to his disciples, and then Nimbarka Swami in the Kumar Sampradaya, he gave to his disciples. So this Sampradaya is still going on, but Rudra Sampradaya, we don't find many people practicing spirituality under the Sampradaya now, but some people are there in the region of Varanasi now. Nimbarka Swami, this Kumar Sampradaya, if you know this temple called Nathdwara in Rajasthan, Srinathji temple, that temple comes under Kumar Sampradaya system. Okay, and Brahma Sampradaya, ISKCON comes under Brahma Sampradaya. Lot of other organizations than ISKCON also come under Brahma Sampradaya. They are called Gaudiya Math. In Bengal, there are a lot of temples. There are a lot of people practicing under this Sampradaya. So this is called Brahma Sampradaya. Okay. Now, what we are discussing right now is from teachings of Srila Prabhupada. He's founder of ISKCON. Okay, he took this, he comes into this parampara. So if you see here in the picture, Lord Krishna, then Brahma, then Naradji. So Narad Muni takes knowledge from Lord Brahma. Then Lord Narada gave to Vedvyas. Who compiled all the Vedic literature? Vedvyas. He is also called Vyasdev. So Vyasdev had compiled all the Vedic literature in the guidance of Narad Muni. Okay, and then Vyasdev gave knowledge to so many other personalities. Madhvacharya came into this line, and then Madhvacharya gave it further. If you have Bhagavad Gita as it is, published by Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, you can open the page after introduction is over and before the first chapter starts. Okay, on that page, this entire chain is given till Srila Prabhupada for Brahma Sampradaya. Okay, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came into this chain, and after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Goswamis, and then Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Prabhupada's guru was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was also a Bengali. Okay, so this last prominent acharyas had come into Bengal. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was from Bengal. His guru was born in Bengal. His guru was also born in Bengal. So like that. Okay. And from Bengal, he went to, he wrote this commentary on Bhagavad Gita, which is known as Bhagavad Gita as it is. He went to America. He gave this knowledge to so many people. And those people's life was transformed. And he also, so that is how ISKCON as an organization grew. Okay. And it was established first in New York. ISKCON was established first in New York. But the founder is Prabhupada. He was from India. He went there and he gave this message to others because Indians were not ready. They were not, they did not want this knowledge. And his guru instructed, Prabhupada's guru instructed him that you preach this message to the English people, Western people. They also should learn this Vedic knowledge. They should perfect their lives. And because Indians, they are copycats, they want to copy anything Westerners do. Okay, so you first make Western lives successful, you give direction to them, and then Indians will follow. And the same thing happened later. Okay. Now, about these 4 sampradayas, also these in Garga Samhita, these predictions have been given. That in the Kali Yuga, I will send this verse in the translation on the group. You can check them. In the interest of time, I will just skim over it. That in the Kali Yuga, only the 4 universities of spiritual knowledge will be prominent, will be there. Anything outside of these 4 universities will only be ignorance, agyan. So see the last thing, sampradaya vihinaye mantraste nishphalah smritaha tasmacha gamanang hyasti sampradaya nararpi. It says these 4 authorized and empowered spiritual channels of disciplic succession are to be fully accepted by all beings, as anything outside of it will have no efficacy. Okay, so the guru, the position of guru, who is a guru? The guru is one who learns from his guru, who learns these scriptures perfectly from a bona fide sampradaya, and he hands it over to his disciples, just like a postman. Now, when I receive a letter, let's say somebody has sent a letter to me, and there's a postman delivering it, right? Will the postman open the letter and add something to it? No. Will the postman delete something from the letter? No. Will the postman not deliver the letter? No. Delivering the letter is responsibility, it's duty, right? The postman's job is take the letter from one hand and give the letter in another hand to where it belongs, right? Similarly, the guru, the bona fide guru, the authorized guru, has to receive knowledge in parampara, which is not, the guru will not change that meaning. He will not misinterpret it. He will not add something to it. He will not remove something from it. He will take the knowledge as it is, and he will give this knowledge further down as it is. And that is why we have Bhagavad Gita as it is. That is a difference between the Bhagavad Gita published by Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, the commentary written by Srila Prabhupada, and the other translations of Bhagavad Gita. Before this Bhagavad Gita was written by Srila Prabhupada, more than 700 translations of Bhagavad Gita were available in the market. But what did those Bhagavad Gita teach? Gita fair, so many book fair are there. And one of my friends was telling me that in his college days, he was interested in reading Bhagavad Gita. And when he came to Pune for an MBA, he was doing an MBA from Symbiosis, and he forgot to bring his Bhagavad Gita from Nagpur. He belongs to Nagpur. So he decided to get a Bhagavad Gita from the book fair. And there are so many shops. And they had their own translations. One person said that Bhagavad Gita teaches you how to keep your company profitable. That's the message. And Bhagavad Gita management fundament, Bhagavad Gita is being taught right now in IIM Ahmedabad as we talk. But what are they doing? Management principles from Bhagavad Gita. But Bhagavad Gita is teaching so many other things also, but we do not want that. We want only management. We want financial fundamentals from Bhagavad Gita. Somebody told to my friend, yeah, Bhagavad Gita teaches you that you should only take Ayurvedic medicine. You should not take other kinds of medicine. Right? What is that? Somebody, some Hindu organization was there. It said, Bhagavad Gita tells you, Swadharme nidhanam shreyas paro dharma bhayava, that you should die practicing being a Hindu. That is what Bhagavad Gita teaches. No, that is not the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. So like that, there are so many misinterpretations going on, and it is very, very dangerous. It has made the society consciousness in it has created such complex issues, and it has only, people have only used Bhagavad Gita and all these Vedas to improve their eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's it, nothing else. But when a person from the authorized bona fide sampradaya university gives this knowledge, right? We need a sampradaya, that is university, we need a guru, that is teacher, and we need a textbook, that is Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic literature. Right? 3 things we need to get perfect spiritual knowledge. So anybody who is giving that knowledge, we have the right to ask this question: which parampara which you belong to? Who is your guru? Where have you learned from? Right? These are the questions we should ask. Okay. Any questions so far? We have completed this topic of discover yourself. Topic 3rd, that is Vedic solutions to all life problems. Vedas have all the solutions. That is summary. We need to find those solutions. And the problems of life and death, they are also being solved by the Vedas, and that is the appeal of the Vedas. That is what God wants us to solve. Don't get indulged into the petty issues every day. Yeah, solve those issues as much as is required, okay, to live this life comfortably, but then do not get bogged down. Do not forget your purpose of life, to leave this world, this temporary sorrowful world. Just leave this world and go to the permanent world where you have permanent happiness. Any questions so far?
Jay, thank you. A quick one, because you spoke about the 3 integrated aspects to authenticate the source of knowledge, and I do agree with that. But just a thought in terms of publication houses of spiritual texts like Bhagavad Gita or Ramayana. Here we are not talking about Ramayana, but mostly Bhagavad Gita.
No, we are talking about all the Vedic literature. Ramayana is also one of them.
Okay, so maybe at least in the northern India, we have Gita Press, which is quite known and famous. So
yes,
does it means that we should also sort of revalidate the publication houses from where we are sourcing these Vedic literature? And would you want to share a small note around that, or should we take those publications which comes from recognized sources or sampradayas? What do you say?
Yes, exactly. That is true, Shashi. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the teacher also should be from the sampradaya, and the books which are coming, they must also be from the authentic authorized sampradaya. Now I'll give you an example. See, when Prabhupada had written this book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, some reporter had asked him, had told him that, oh Swamiji, what have you written in this book? You are claiming that you've written this commentary, but whatever have you written, you have repeated whatever Ramanujacharya had written 1000 years ago. Okay, so Prabhupada said, yeah, thank you very much for validating that. I never wanted to give something from my own mind. Previous acharyas, whatever they have said, my responsibility, my duty is to repeat that. Now, Prabhupada had given that in English and with the examples which are modern day examples with simple English which we can relate to, the examples which we can relate to. But otherwise, now Ramanujacharya was Sri Sampradaya and Prabhupada is coming from Brahma Sampradaya. So there is no conflict in these 4 sampradayas. We can take anything, whatever we want to receive, and as part of spirituality, we have to go to one of these sampradayas. I am not telling that, okay, you come to ISKCON only, or you to go to that organization only. No. Out of these 4 sampradayas, you can go anywhere. But these sampradayas only, because that is what has been given in the Vedas. Outside that is only cheating. Now, Gita Press, you talked about, right? Mostly Gita Press, Gorakhpur, yeah, it's a very good organization. A lot of Vedic literature has been produced only because of the Gita Press, and they do it at a nominal cost. They don't charge much, so they do it uh, as a charitable activity. They don't earn a lot of profit out of it. 5 rupees, 10 rupees, Bhagavad Gita you will get, which will have only the verses. That is good. We can get that Bhagavad Gita which has only the verses from Gita Press. Small book. I want to refer to one verse. I'm not able to recollect. I can go and read it. That is good. But when it comes to the translation, when it comes to the commentary, that makes a difference. And now we do not know Sanskrit. Anybody can tell anything. There are people in this world today. They learn Sanskrit and they write commentary on Bhagavad Gita. It is same as It is same as a person who learns English and then he tries to translate the paper written by Einstein or Newton. Do you think that's a justice to that paper? A person who knows English language can translate anything, can write a commentary on anything. So he can write a commentary on a physics book or a physics experiment? No, he cannot. Similarly, Sanskrit, right? The knowledge has to be derived in parampara. It has to be realized in parampara. So that is very important. Yes. I hope that answers.
Yeah. Thank you. That was insightful.
Yeah. And any other question? It is 6:05. So there is, we don't have time. Otherwise, I would have started the next topic as well. The next topic is science of soul. I'll just give you a brief introduction about the topic, and then next week we'll discuss it. This is 6:06 right now. In 5 minutes, we'll discuss what is about this. Okay, and the next topic is the most important one out of all the topics. Okay, the most important. This is where the spirituality starts. Actually, the spirituality starts from this topic, the science of soul. Soul is also called spirit. So spiritual starts from the knowledge of spirit. Everything which we have discussed so far is to bring us to this platform on which we can understand the concept of soul. Okay, there are science. We will understand this existential soul from the point of view of science, from the point of view of the logical understanding, from the point of view of observations and realizations, from the point of view of the Vedas. But it's very, very fundamental understanding. And the mistake which people do in understanding the Vedic literature is this, that without the knowledge of soul, they start digging into it. And whatever they get is only material. They do not get anything spiritual out of the Vedas. And that is a problem. That is why even the Britishers and so many people, scholars, they are not able to get the juice of the Vedas. We have to approach from this knowledge, and that's the knowledge which Krishna gave to Arjuna in second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and that's where when Krishna started speaking. So as soon as he started speaking, he spoke the knowledge of soul, and entire Bhagavad Gita is based on that. Now, when somebody says Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, this verse is the most misunderstood verse in this world, because this verse has been understood as at the bodily platform so far. We will discuss it later. Everything which Krishna is speaking is for the soul. Okay, so okay, I'll not. So okay, we will start this topic in the next week only. Before that, I wanted to announce one particular thing, that 25th December is Christmas. All of us know, but we do not. But what we do not know is 25th December is also this year. It is Gita Jayanti. Bhagavad Gita was spoken in Kurukshetra on a day called Gita Jayanti or Mokshada Ekadashi. Okay, the Ekadashi which comes in the month of Margashirsha. If you see the Hindi calendar, this December month is called Margashirsha, and the Margashirsha Ekadashi, the 11th day according to the lunar cycle, Bhagavad Gita was spoken. That was the first day of the battle in Kurukshetra. And Bhagavad Gita was spoken on that day. So that day is coming on 25th December this year. Okay, And on this day, whoever is connected with Gita, we celebrate this day. How do we celebrate? We celebrate by reading Bhagavad Gita, teaching Bhagavad Gita, giving this knowledge, gifting this book to somebody, anything, whatever you know about Bhagavad Gita, we tell to somebody. We also host programs. ISKCON has so many lectures and all. So this year, okay, remember Shashi, we met December that year. Okay, so this Bhagavad Gita distribution marathon we organize in this particular month all over the world in ISKCON, Australia, America, New Zealand, Pakistan, Dubai, India, all over the world. Volunteers from ISKCON, we try to reach as many as more and more people to inspire them to read Bhagavad Gita and to connect to God, right? And if they want to attend our classes, we give them invitation to the classes. I will forward you a message on this group. Okay, that is about one particular program we are doing from 26 December to 10 days. So we'll have a 7-day Bhagavad Gita course, crash course. Okay, prominent speakers from ISKCON Pune, they will be taking that course. Okay, they have been teaching with us since last 20 years or more. They have realizations about it. These courses will be in English, Hindi, Marathi, 3 languages. They are on the weekends or weekdays. If they are weekends, meaning Saturday and Sunday evening, 1 or 1.5 hours, and like that, it will be 3 weekends. So 7 sessions. If you choose weekday sessions, then it will be 7 days in a row. Okay, so and it will then all of them will be the evening, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. like that. So it has a registration charge of 301 rupees. In 301 rupees, you will get a Bhagavad Gita delivered to your home. Okay, and you will get some spiritual gift as well with Bhagavad Gita and access to this online lecture series. Okay, so it's my humble request to you that you all can register for that course. This is a little bit deeper than from the DYS which we are doing. Or DYS we will continue anyway. Okay. If you are regularly attending DYS, you can skip that course. That is okay, because we will not give a break to this class, and that is also about fundamentals. So we are covering them here also. But my humble request you to spread this message. Okay, people in this group who have not been attending this particular class can join that series, and you can give that series to this option to your loved ones, relatives, friends. Okay, please do that. That will help a lot in bringing people in touch with Bhagavad Gita and bringing transformation in their lives. Okay, so it is. I will send those messages and the flyers on this group, which you can forward ahead, and you can register if you want to. That's Shashi.
Sorry. Just one more question was coming across was, you spoke about Vedas, right? And you spoke about the Paramparas and the school of thoughts there. The point is, what about Puranas? How do they complement this entire journey? Because you have Puranas which are separate from the Vedas.
Yes.
So how they complete the cycle? Would you want to talk about it sometime later, or now in a short note?
Yeah, now itself we can talk about it. It's very simple actually. See, Vedas, they are philosophy, too much philosophy. Okay, you go to Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samveda, Atharvaveda, these 4 Vedas are there, and Vedanta Sutra is there, the Upanishads are there. They are full of philosophy. These laymen like us, they do not, generally we are not inclined towards spiritual, this too deep philosophy. So the same thing is explained in the form of the stories, in the form of how great people have lived their lives. Okay, so that's why the Puranas have been given. The Puranas are itihas, the history. Okay, by the way, they are not mythology. The Britishers have coined this term, which is called mythology. Mythology means what? Biology means something related to bio, our life. The geology means something which is related to the geography, right? Mythology is something related to myth. Myth means something which is not true. So they coined this term purposefully so that we we start identifying with our scriptures as mythology and we stop believing them. Oh, this is only myth, this is some story, there's something which is given, ये तो ऐसे ही लिख दिया. uh, very often I have heard this comment from people कि ये तो देखो ये जो साधु होते थे उस समय के, वो सोसाइटी को एक पर्टिकुलर वे में चलाना था, कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स देने थे, इसलिए उन्होंने ये कुछ लिख दिया. इनमें कोई सच्चाई नहीं है, ये दंत कथाएं हैं, ये ऐसे ही पुरानी कथाएं हैं, इनमें सच्चाई नहीं है, ये तो माइथोलॉजी है. एंड एजुकेटेड पीपल यूज दिस टर्म कि अगर वो सच्चाई होती तो उसको माइथोलॉजी क्यों बोलते. हाँ, तो माइथोलॉजी बोल रहे हैं क्योंकि हमें सिखाया गया है कि इनको माइथोलॉजी बोलो, but actually it is history, it is not mythology. So when we talk next, whenever to somebody, we should use the term history, not mythology. Okay. Now Puranas like Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these other Puranas like Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana, everything, they have been given to explain the same philosophy in a story-like way, story-like manner. That okay, see, this is how the principles, you learn the principles from these people's life, or from these episodes, from these complex, like Mahabharata is such complex setting. From that, earlier in the villages, every day Ramayana and Mahabharata used to be heard or read, right? And they used to learn from it. Okay, this is how Yudhishthira did, this is how Duryodhana did, we should not live like that, we should not do like that, right? Or we should do this, we should do that, like that. Okay. Any other question?
Thank you, Jay.
Jai Prabhuji, one request from my end. I mean, when we talk about Vedas and Puranas, and next session will be, on soul. So I heard somewhere, I don't remember where, that there is a, very famous Veda called Purana called Garuda Purana, and which talks about what happens to life after,
Yes.
life or soul
Yes.
once it leaves that particular body. And people
Yes.
often say that whenever there is a death in the family, that time only you should hear. So
Yeah.
when next time we meet for the session of soul, could you please throw a little bit of light on what exactly is the Garuda Purana, and why only we should listen when somebody leaves their body
Yeah,
on
see, yeah, Vishal, sorry to cut you short, but I understood what you were saying. See, this is the problem with Indian people. Actually, all the scriptures, all the Puranas, anything, there is no particular time that when you can read this and otherwise you cannot read. No, all the scripture, anything scriptural book, we can read any time. The problem is we put that bracket around it and then we don't read it and then we lose the value. Okay. It is not like that. Garuda Purana talks about the soul's journey after the body is left, and mostly it is read when a person in the family leaves the body. And why it is read at that time is because the others who are sorrowful, who are trying to adjust after the person has left, okay, their heart is soft. Garuda Purana describes, okay, क्या होता है उसके बाद में. So at least at that, and it describes how the hells are, okay, what happens in the hell, what happens in the heaven, things like that. So when the people around in the house, they will hear that, they will at least take to spirituality now. They will realize that, okay, and the same thing is going to happen to me. If I don't live a nice life, then I will also be trapped like this. So better that we live life accordingly. The problem is, abhi aajkal kya hota hai? Somebody has died. The Brahmana is coming to the home and he is reading Garuda Purana and nobody is sitting around him. People are busy. People are busy in the, creating these wills and distributing the property and so on. That's it. It has become a ritual. No, Garuda Purana can be read any time in our life. People say that Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, you should not take in our home, take in your home. Mahabharata, you should not read in your home. Why? If you read that, then your home will become a Mahabharata battlefield. The fights will increase and so on. No, this is very, very rubbish. If you think Mahabharata will make your life, will bring problems to your life, what is TV doing in your home? So many obscene, nonsense things we are watching in the TV every day. Small kids, they are watching these, nude scenes and violence and everything. That will not cause war in your home. That will not cause problems in your home. and Mahabharata will cause. This is very, very rubbish. Okay, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Garuda Puran, any other Puran, any other scripture can be read every single day. Okay, because they are meant for us to transform our lives. Thank you, Vishal. for
Dhanyavad,
being with us.
Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay, so it's 6:19. I think we should end this session here. I will stop the recording.